This is Jay Michaels. I'm a professor of media culture and communication, and I have been clocking horror and sci-fi in all its forms and genres for over 50 years. And I'm thrilled to bring you fascinating information about this exciting genre for the new Boston Sci-Fi Channel. Now, the last time I spoke to this brilliant kid who never grew up, he was telling me that he's planning to do a comic book company. At that point, he was an award-winning author. He had, Patrick, is it 5 or 7 books?
7, sir.
7 books on the topic of video games and their creators. And his books are selling like wildfire. They're literally the encyclopedia of this industry, and they were in colleges and bookstores everywhere. And when I asked him about that, he simply said, sweet. And then he tells me he's doing a comic book company. And I thought, sweet. We're now 2 years since then. And Legacy Comics with an X is selling like wildfire. Its characters are seen in comic book stores everywhere. I always, looking on his social media, I'm always hearing that he's negotiating in terms of graphic novels, in terms of scripts, in terms of video games regarding these characters. They're the next Marvel Comics. Patrick Hickey Jr., welcome. Good to see you again, my fellow academic. How's everything?
Everything's great, Jay. Thank you for having me. Yeah, a lot has definitely been going down the past 2 years. Super excited for where we're going.
Excellent. So I'm going to sit here and hold on to myself so I don't become a comic book fanboy and sound like a kid. I'm just going to open the floor to you and say, okay, when I first spoke to you about this, you said you're going to start Legacy Comics. That was the end of the sentence. How's the last 2 years? What has happened?
The last 2 years has been insane. We went to Kickstarter and we were funded 301% on Kickstarter. We were funded in about 2.5 hours. As you are well aware, we signed a deal with the Stokerverse to bring a Renfield prequel comic to life. We did that. We just finished bringing a wrestling documentary to life in comic book form called The Ballad of Gia and Frankie. We have released over the past 2 years 39 different comics. It's been really insane. We're racking up issues of all of our major series. Next year we're gonna be in a situation where we're gonna release some graphic novels for some of our series. 2 of our series are gonna be ready for graphic novels later this year. So we also started our pretty aggressive trading card initiative where we release comics in trading card form, comic in the front, QR code in the back. You scan it, you can read the comic wherever you want. So it's really cool. So we know a lot of people like to read physical comics. We know other people like to just read them digitally, but then we knew there was a whole cross section of people that wanted to read comics in a new and different way. So we started our digital QR comic trading card platform, and that's been a really good success. Yeah, man, it's been really good.
You're very smart. I've heard years and years ago people were talking about digital comics, but they didn't seem to catch on. But I think the notion of the QR code, I think the notion that you can have the real comic as well as the digital is a very, very smart idea. Stan Lee, years ago at an event, he said, buy 2 copies of this so you can keep one for posterity and read the other. And you're essentially doing that. Let's read the digital, but hold on to that piece of artwork that you have. Speaking of artwork, your comics are visually gorgeous. There's so many different styles and genres. I remember the first one that you had, Condry. I think that was your first character. Where has Condry been in 2 areas in 2 years? How has he grown?
Condry has grown tremendously. Actually, our other series, The Job, which is about a pro wrestler and his wife that rob banks together in their spare time, that takes place in the Condry verse as well. So that series is starting issue 2. So in the past 2 years, we've done The Job 0, The Job 1, and now we're working on Job 2. Condry, we've done a spinoff in Sarita, which is his sidekick. I don't want to call her a sidekick, but a supporting character. We're also finishing another one-shot side story called Young Condry, which fills in the backstory of Condry, and Condry 5 is currently in production. So our Kickstarter was all about Conjury 4, so we're working on Conjury 5 as we speak now. So it's been good. We've been growing a steady fan base. It's pretty funny, like every couple of weeks I'll go on the website and see that somebody else like owns this jacket. So like I bought this jacket like for myself, like to support the brand, and other people have bought it. So it's just like it's going to be fun one day to see somebody on the street with one of these. And the character has really grown. The whole, every comic that we're doing, The Legend of the Night Owl, The Job, Kroom, Dem Goals, like they all have fan bases. People contact me about them all the time. So it's been really fun to see us from 2 years ago to where we are now.
That's really incredible. I see on your social media all the time, your biggest thing. There you are, you're smiling next to someone who bought one of your comics, or you see it, there it is on the display in a comic book store or something like that.
Yeah.
Or you have what I call the proud Patrick face, where you're standing in front of a table at a convention and you're just so proud that those are all yours. Now you said you see people in the street, you take pictures of people holding your books. Who's your audience? Who is the legacy audience?
So right now our audience is that, traditional comic book audience. It's like 34 to 45. But I mean, I really feel like we have something for everyone. I posted pictures of our zombie comic, Brooklyn Bleeds, earlier today. And I feel like that is a perfect entry point for like a teenager or a female that may not read comics. It's essentially The Walking Dead, but with a dog as the lead character who speaks in dog. So the book is completely narrated as if a dog, would be thinking. It's all inner monologue of the dog. So even though we have comics that a traditional comic book fan would love, we also have comics that are absolutely more accessible for anyone to read. So that's definitely where like Brooklyn Bleeds is.
Let's talk about Brooklyn Bleeds, because we're here talking about horror and sci-fi. And the one thing you told me way back when was there's always a level of noir, if you will, to your characters. Yours is not Happy Funny Animals. The first comic book company, their first comic book was called Funny Animals, and none of yours are funny animals. Tell us about Brooklyn Bleeds. Where did that come from? That's a brilliant idea, because so many of these shows, especially Walking Dead and so many others, there's so few animals. Past the opening episode where the ill-fated horse, we don't see animals in any of these shows. So it's an interesting detail. Tell us about the dog's point of view. Leads.
Well, see, the thing is, if you're a horror fan, you get that like zombie books aren't about zombies. They're about how people respond to zombies and the things that people will do in the face of a pandemic, an epidemic, a revolution, an Armageddon, so to speak. And every zombie book just like kind of takes these archetypes of, like a former police officer, a guy down on his luck, or this person or that person. And it's just like, we never really think about the animals. And for me, it's just like, I really connected with like I Am Legend, with the dog in I Am Legend. And I connected with comics like Elmer and Beasts of Burden that gave animals like a say-so. And I always wondered, like, what would it be like for a dog during like an earthquake or a zombie apocalypse? So that's what we did. We wanted to do a zombie book for a long time at Legacy. And we originally were looking at Night of the Living Dead because their license had gone into public domain. But I really didn't want to jump on that low hanging fruit. I wanted to do something that was original. Clementine had just come out, which is like a spinoff of The Walking Dead. And I read that book, and it's in black and white, and it's so beautiful, and they just do so much with so little. So I was just like, how do we put a spin on the zombie story and make it really effective? And we didn't know how it was gonna hit. And then our letterer, Joshua Adams, after he lettered the book, he went to me, he's like, I hate you. And I'm like, why? He goes, because like I legit like almost cried during there. He's like, the connection between the animal and the owner, and the animal and like society is like totally, he's like, you connect. He's like, it's obvious that you love animals and that you can connect with them in this. He goes, but it's just eloquently done. And I was like, awesome. So that was the whole point, to give the voiceless a voice, so to speak, but do it in a zombie book. So it's a lot of fun. We did Brooklyn Bleeds 1, and we have the first spinoff, Hasty Bing. which introduces another character to the story. It's actually a Black Panther that is the last surviving animal in the zoo in the midst of a zombie apocalypse, and he is going to eventually like meet up with our other characters. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
So these, as much as there's people in there, obviously, and there's dead people in there, it's a zombie thing. It's really the point of view of the animals. It's really a point of view of our four-legged friends during all of this. I think I lost you for a moment, but you're back.
I got you.
There you go. So your book, so this series is the point of view of the animals. It's not just an animal. It's all.
So like each issue, we're gonna kind of just jump and like go to like another animal before everything kind of like comes together, you know. But also, I mean, when the humans do speak, so like we're gonna have another issue that's coming out like in the summer where a man, and this is exclusive, you guys are getting this first, where an animal, a man loses his wife like right before the zombie apocalypse, and the only thing that's like keeping him sane is the fact that like right before she really got sick, they adopted a cat, and this woman, his wife, loved the cat, and the cat gets, you know, they leave in the midst of the zombie apocalypse, the window is open and a zombie reaches in and grabs the cat, and the guy is like, he lost his wife, now he lost his cat, and now he's done. Now he's done, and he's just gonna, he's a wrecking machine, you know, and he's gonna end up meeting up with our other main characters and stuff. So what we're gonna do is in between the large 24-page issues, we're gonna have these little 8-page side stories that really fill in the gaps. So it's gonna be a lot of fun to witness.
I love those. Essentially, I think your Dracula was that. It was what you call the Ashcan edition. It was a shortened sort of prequel, if you will, and it was so brilliantly done. That's fascinating. My wife is a staunch animal rights activist, and whenever we see any kind of natural disaster, we say, what happened to their pets? Who rescued their dogs and cats and whatever? So you're going to have that whole audience. I'm writing a book called Hidden Monsters, and it talks about the parables inside horror films and science fiction films. And this is a strong one. It's like what animals do for us, what our pets really are to us. And you show that, oh my gosh, in such a weird way. Your books are dark. You know, toughened individuals is like Stan Lee always had superheroes that had super problems. Why is the universe of legacy the really embattled individuals? Do you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you. I'm sorry. The fucking internet here.
Why are they the embattled individuals in your characters?
Because I think like if there's no conflict, then like what's the purpose? I mean, we only learn about ourselves through immense struggle. If you take the same bus at the same time every single day, that's not a story that a comic book does not make. You know, like you need to have characters tested, and you need to see like what you're made of. So it's just like for these animals and for all of our characters, like they're put in situations where they're consistently learning about themselves. And like I especially love when a character starts off as A and then is put through B, C, and D and becomes F, and still cannot believe that at one point in the story that they were an A. I mean, so that's the thing. It's like when you think of The Walking Dead, the transformation that like Michonne and Rick and all of these people make over the course, like they end up completely unrecognizable, you know? So to me, being able to follow that and to tell stories like that mean a lot to me. So there's a lot of that in the job. There's a lot of that in Condry. There's a lot of that in pretty much every series that we do, where like these characters are becoming something much different. I mean, Marvel does the same exact thing. If you look at, you know, Peter Parker circa 1963, he is very different than he is now, you know? So you want people along for the ride. If you're not creating a ride, then that's the purpose.
you're creating life. You're creating a whole life, and
Sure.
this horror comic is brilliant because it really shows us, look, our animals are going through life as well. They're growing up as well.
Oh
Really,
yeah.
really brilliant. Now,
Thank you.
the characters that you're talking about, I'm hearing wrestling, I'm hearing horror, I'm hearing sci-fi, I'm hearing fantasy, I'm hearing I'm hearing what I'll call pop culture. Now, I met you as the editor-in-chief of one of the probably the #1 pop culture site, Review Fix, and you cover all of pop culture. If it's out there, if you're stepping out of your house to enjoy life, then you can see it on Review Fix. So you're the perfect person to ask about this. How has now we see how the world has changed, thank you. How has the comic book industry changed? You talked about Peter Parker and Spider-Man in 1963, and I have some of those issues, so I see them in my head. How has the industry changed now that you are creating your own comic book world and you're influenced by all the worlds outside there, wrestling, TV, movies, stage, etc., through Review Fix? How has the comic book industry changed?
I don't know. I don't know if the comic book industry has changed. I just think that the comic book industry is in a situation now where they can capitalize on all of the different things that are going on in pop culture. So for a really long time, Hollywood didn't want to take a chance on anything that wasn't Batman. The best you could get for Spider-Man was, a CBS live action series. The best that you could get for Hulk is, a Hulk TV series. Like that was the best that you could do. A Thor, Daredevil, one shot TV made for TV movie. And then X-Men really changed everything. Blade did not. Blade made a lot of money, but Blade would have made money regardless because it was a sexy vampire killer, with Wesley Snipes, who like was gold in 1998, 1999. The fact that it was a Marvel character had very little to do with its success. The X-Men, however, was synonymous with Marvel. And Marvel didn't know if it was going to be a success either. So you didn't have this big outpouring of X-Men comics before the movie, but the movie made a ton of money. And now all of a sudden Hollywood's going, oh, okay. And then, fast forward 10, 15 years, you've got the Netflix series. Now you've got the Disney Plus series. And we have comic books now that aren't necessarily about like about superheroes and stuff like that. Like, I mean, if you read something like Michael Oeming's Wild Rover, it's about addiction to alcohol. If you read, Chimichanga, it's about a bearded little girl in a circus. Like the genres of comics are nearly limitless now, to the point where, like, if you're going to start a comic book company, the last type of comic you want to write is one about superheroes. With a guy with a cape doesn't necessarily sell books anymore. So the fact of the matter is, like, fiction in comic book form has evolved. There's also a growing nonfiction comic book scene as well. So and then you have digital now, where like people can go and read back issues like never before. 20 years ago you couldn't do that. So comic books now have access to like the same types of technology and distribution platforms that much of pop culture has had well before them. And now comic books are considered sexy by so many more people. So many more people are reading them now. People are finally starting to see that like manga, anime, and comics has a place in academia, in Hollywood, and all of these places. So comic books are finally starting to get their due, the same as video games. So it's just that's what makes it feel like comic books have changed, but they haven't. They've been pumping out great comic books for 75 years, and just now people are finally starting to see what's going on.
Wow. When you're saying that, it sparked so many moments in comic book history, if you will. I remember when Joe Quesada said, we're not putting the comics code on the issue of Spider-Man in the early 80s. Because Norman Osborn was on drugs. The Green Goblin was on drugs, and it wasn't going to be allowed, and he just did it. You're right. Comic books have always pushed the envelope, but now finally they're allowed to.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now you're bringing up some of my favorites there. You're bringing up the old Hulk and Spider-Man TV shows, and obviously the Marvel movies. Now I've had students, I've had colleagues that I said, you ever read a comic book? They say no. And I say, these characters? Yes, I've seen all the Marvel movies. So they're almost a living entity, if you will. So Here's the dreaded question, and I'm sure you've asked yourself this question. When do the legacy comic universe hit the screen, big or little screen?
What I can say on the record is that like there are active negotiations to bring legacy books to different venues, and we're also actively addressing the need to continue to build our portfolio of licensees where we're helping other people bring their products, which may or may not be on other types of screens, to the comic book medium. So for us right now, it's like being a company that's only been around for 2 years, you could really build out big, or you can build out smaller and stronger. And we're in a situation right now where the most important thing to do is to make high quality comic books, because if you make high quality comic books, you'll have an opportunity to get to the big screen. I feel like or the little screen, or in a video game, or this or that. So I just feel like I just feel like so many people get into comic books to eventually get to the big screen, and they forget that they got into comic books to tell stories. So I feel like our big focus over the next couple of years is to tell the best stories that we possibly can, because we have ongoing negotiations for a whole bunch of amazing things that will take us outside of comic books. So I'm not worried about getting those opportunities. I've been super lucky to have mentors in the comic book industry that have been in for a lot longer than I have. And they've told me that like the first 5 years, you want to just continue to publish and pay your team and make sure all of your bills are paid, and to build customer support. And after 4 or 5 years, then if those characters have any staying power, then you're going to get those opportunities. So like, I mean, we've only been a company for 2 years, and we've already secured a few licensing deals. You know, we're doing digital books, we're doing trading cards, we're doing a whole bunch of things that comic book companies that have been around far longer than us haven't done. So I would love to see a Conjury or The Job movie or a video game, and I'm totally confident that that will happen one day. But the biggest objective right now is to create the best books that we possibly can, and to reach as many people as possible. So that means podcasts, signings, all of those things, because any independent comic book company right now isn't going to be able to pay their bills and keep their lights on just on digital sales alone. The algorithms of all of these social media platforms do not help individual creators, and being on just podcasts alone isn't enough, and doing a couple of signings a year definitely isn't enough either. So you need to get out there, have a grassroots type of business structure, and try and reach as many people as possible. So that's what we're doing to eventually get to those places.
You're quite brilliant at it. That's the 21st century version of Stan Lee creating the character of Stan Lee and going everywhere. And hello, true believers, Excelsior. You knew if you saw him, you knew the quality of the books you were reading. So you're
Absolutely
on the road to that, which is very smart. What's your favorite comic book? Not of yours, but because I've seen sometimes you hold up an issue and say, I must have this. What's your favorite? What is that one comic book that you still remember reading?
It's a super hard question, but I would probably go to I definitely go to Amazing Spider-Man. That series is the one that like launched me as a reader. Without Amazing Spider-Man, I'm not here right now. I was a big fan of Spectacular Spider-Man because like it would give a avenue to younger writers and younger artists at the time. So yeah, without Spider-Man, I'm not here without Spider-Man. So
I'm going to agree with you. I loved the timely comics of the 1940s just as an oddity, but yes, my first was the Amazing Spider-Man. And when I was collecting, there was no Spectacular Spider-Man or anything like that. There was Spider-Man and Marvel Team Up, and that was your Spider-Man fix on that. I have to thank you, and I'm doing it on the air. Your Dracula book, your Renfield in it, had a mustache and glasses and looked a lot like me, and that was a dream come true for me to be in a comic book. Is this now I described you as a 12-year-old that wouldn't grow up, but the truth is you're a celebrated author. you're a distinguished professor. You are head of departments. You run whole programs. So you sound like an adult, but then you turn the social media page and there you are, with the proud Patrick face in front of all your books at a comic book store. Is this a dream come true for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, on Facebook, like the tagline is I live a life I didn't know existed. And I mean, if you would have told me 30 years ago when I was 9 that I would have written 7 books on video game history, owned a comic book company, done voiceover in over 15 video games. I mean, I'm the lead voice actor on WrestleQuest. Many people are saying that it's going to be the biggest game of 2023, the biggest indie game of 2023. Yeah, it's been pretty wild. I still have a really long way to go before I'm happy. I'm very hard on myself. Every day is hard. But yeah. I mean, when I sit down sometimes and just like look at my body of work, I think I've done more than I ever thought that I would, but I think I could do more, so that's where I'm at right now.
That's the most perfect answer. I'm very happy with what I've done. Now I'll do some more. I laugh because the perfect indication of who you are sometimes is on your Facebook, because we'll see your 2 beautiful children and they're holding up Condry comics, or they're holding up something. There's one time where your daughter was holding up a video game or something, and your tagline was simply, "I'm so proud." And I laughed out loud. I thought that's the perfect person right there, adult enough to raise brilliant children and put comic books and video games in their hand readily. Brilliant. Patrick, how can we get to Legacy Comics? Where do we have to go? What websites, what stores, what do we got to do?
So all of our books are available on our website at legacycomics.com. So that's legacycomics.com. We ship worldwide. The books are available digitally, physically, and in trading card form. You can also get many of our books on Amazon and Comixology. Many books, there's a bunch of stores in Brooklyn, in the Brooklyn, New York area that carry our books as well. But if you want to support us as much as possible, go on our official website, buy the books that way. Also, if you're on Instagram, you can buy our books on Instagram. They're available to purchase there in our shop on Instagram. So, yeah, legacycomics.com. We also have a weekly updated podcast called Talking Comics, where we go through like all the inspiration behind our comics. We talk about the comic book industry as well. That's a lot of fun. That's on Spotify. It's available right on top of our website. Our website is updated daily. Our Patreon is updated daily. Our Twitter, our Facebook, our Instagram are all updated daily as well. And all of those social media platforms are legacy_comics with an X. So if you're into comics, we have something for you every single day.
You're also the king of social media. I could know what time your coffee is ready at Dunkin'. Sometimes. Yeah. Really excellent. Patrick, I'm thrilled to be able to chat with you about this. I'm thrilled to hear more about this. I think this is absolutely wonderful. And you're making another dream of mine come true. When I met Stan Lee a million years ago, I thought to myself, I'd love to get to know someone like him. Well, guess what? Now I do. And that's
Thank you very much, man.
Here's to the next Stan Lee and the next Marvel Comics in Legacy Comics. Ladies and gentlemen, they're all there. Look for them online and look for these heroes on pages, on the small screen, on your phone, and eventually on the large screen. Patrick, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to hear more of what's going on, and I'll be first online when you're speaking at the next convention.
Thank you, buddy. Always a pleasure.
Ciao.